Hi guys, welcome to our next live YouTube tasting. I'm Wayne Smith, one of the founders of Brew.
And I'm Lee Gladden, the other founder of Brew.
Thanks to all our new subscribers who've joined us for our Drink Outside the Box Can Club. A little bit different, as you guys probably feel for yourself. We don't have a live audience today because we went for the pub. And you guys probably know that because you're sat at home waiting to get out to the pubs again in December. So yeah, a little bit of a different format, hence the comfortable chairs and the social distance.
Feels very posh, the stand with the Chesterfield.
Yeah. Slippers.
Which we got from Facebook Marketplace. It's not Scottish. I thought it was free.
So we've got some pretty good beers on selection tonight. So we've gone for the strong pack. So we've got 4 different beers, all in varying ABVs from 6% upwards.
Yeah, we're averaging 7.7% this session. So we've had a few pints beforehand just to get ourselves on.
Yeah, just ease our way into it. So for anyone joining us at home, we managed to get the tasting pack. Thanks for buying them. We did have a very limited range because of this bad boy, the barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko exclusive taster. Highly recommend you get them out of the fridge now. So we've got pumpkin dark side, a barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko. If you get them out of the fridge, have them sat inside, let them warm up a little bit. Because we've got those beers to try later on and we'll taste better more. So without further ado, I'd recommend taking your can of Noober, pouring it, and having a sip while we talk you through the format.
Okay, so like Wayne has said, no audience this time. That is something we hope to return to next time, but obviously that's going to depend on the national and local COVID/lockdown conditions. We have super enjoyed having an audience over the last few sessions, so if we are able to, we will have an audience next time. I think it'd be really good if we were able to do it at the new site next time, so you can actually see some of the progress that's been made there. But we were obviously going to work within the conditions and see where we are. So the beers that we're going to be drinking this time are displayed here left to right. I don't know how well you can see them from where you are, but we're going to be doing Nuba first. 6% New England IPA. We're then going to be following that up with a 7.4% fruited sour IPA with peach and vanilla called Is Peachy. We're then going to be doing, I think, possibly for the first time ever, a collab beer.
Yeah, first time on live tasting.
Yeah, first time on live tasting, we're going to be doing a collab beer. And this is going to be a beer that we've done with S43 from Durham. It's called Pumpkin Dark Side. This is a mouthful. It's a spiced pumpkin latte milk stout. Have we got that right? And that is also 7.4%. And then to conclude with, we're going to be launching a new series of beer which we, in tribute to Billy Joel, are calling the Brew York State of Mind series. And the very first of that series is this barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko. So as we sample each beer, we're going to be talking to you about the recipe, the concept behind the beer, perhaps even the branding. And we'll give you as much interesting tidbits as we possibly can about that. But what's really going to make this session interesting, and we say this every time, is the interactivity. We really need you guys to be putting forward your questions. The more questions you put forward, the more you're going to get out of this, and the more interesting it's also going to be for myself and Wayne. So many of you have submitted questions in advance, but for those of you who want to get your questions in now, the way in which to do that is just to post a comment directly below this video. We have a new team behind the camera today. We've got Ant, our digital content manager, and we've got Nadia, our new marketing manager, who are controlling things behind the scenes now. And they've upped the game technology-wise. We've now got a little iPad in here, and your questions are going to appear up here at the right time. So get your questions in now. Like we said, the more you get in, the better this is going to be. And as we do each beer, we're also going to be taking a particular subject, and we've got some interesting ones today. At one point, we're going to tell you what are going to be the beers next time. And we also have some very, very big news to announce later on. It would seem we are having some technology issues. Are we okay on sound? We're all good?
Getting there.
We're getting there. So apologies if anyone has picked up on any audio issues. We are having some issues with the mic. We are attempting to resolve now. Hopefully we will have resolved soon, but we will just carry on. So the first beer is Noober.
Yes. So hopefully you guys have opened your can of Noober at the moment. If you can't technology issues, I'll go really slow and I'll let my guys see behind the scenes. So Noober 6.6% New England IPA. Are we all good soundbite?
Yeah.
So Noober 6.6% New England IPA. It's a beer that we brewed a couple of years back. It was our second ever hazy
Triple H.
We had Triple H. So Triple H 4.3%. Our first ever hazy pale ale. We then followed up with Nuba, which is its bigger brother. It's 6.6%. It's more intensely hoppy. It's soft and juicy though. It's pretty easy going. And this is the evolution of Nuba. So the guys amongst you probably noticed the artwork has changed a little bit. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But the beer itself, if you want to grab a glass, have a sniff. Hopefully you'll get some really nice fruity notes on there. You'll get some sort of, I get a bit of a bubblegum aroma when I drink and smell beers like this.
That'll be the mosaic.
So yeah, mosaic's really good for fruity and those type of flavours. It has Citra, Mosaic and Simcoe in the hops. It has a small amount of bitter in hops, but you hopefully can't taste them. It's quite a hazy beer. So New England IPA, it's a hazy style. It has pale ale malt, oats, wheat, melanoidin, which is the biscuits that taste in malt. Quite a nice, soft, easy drinking beer. Lots of citrus flavours coming through. The evolution of this beer, as I mentioned earlier, we've tweaked the hopping ratios over the last couple of batches we brewed. This is the first time we brewed it in about 12 months, and it's, in my opinion, definitely the best version we've done, if not one of the best New England IPAs we've brewed. And one of the main reasons for that is obviously learning what we have over the years, but also the introduction of a fresh yeast. We've got London Ale free yeast in this, which is super nice yeast, and Lee will tell you some geeky facts about it.
Yeah, so you're probably not aware of London Ale 3. It's what a lot of the kind of big breweries that specialise in hoppy beers in this country use. They tend to use either London Ale 3 or a very similar yeast called London Fog. It is suspected that the American yeasts like Conan and things that the alchemists use were originally derived from this ale yeast. So the kind of East Coast beers that you get in the US that are super juicy, super fruity like this, it is suspected that originally it was a yeast that came out of London. They think it may have been this yeast. So they didn't really understand at first why this yeast was so special. What we now understand is that it has an ability to do something called biotransformation. And biotransformation is when a living organism takes a chemical compound and morphs it into something else. And London Ale 3 has a lot of a compound, an enzyme called beta-glucosidase. And what that does is it will take some flavour compounds that are kind of nice, and it'll turn them into some flavour compounds that are really nice. And getting really technical, the kind of big example is they take something called geraniol, which is really floral, geraniol like geranium, so kind of floral, and it turns it into something called beta-citronellol, which is massively limey and lemony, and that's why you get the big citrus character in these beers that are using this yeast. So you're getting the big contribution of that type of flavour from the yeast, but then the yeast itself is taking those hops and it's changing them in a way that's making them even more citrusy.
So hopefully we've answered a question in doing this little introduction to Noober. So we got a question from Jeff Matthews. So Jeff said, is Noober a rebrew of Vermont IPA of the same name from 2017, or is it a separate beer? So like I said, it's more of an evolution of this beer. It is the same beer. It's Noober. It's not going to be a separate listing on Untapped, as was mentioned, but it's more of an evolution. We've taken what was good about that beer and kept trying to improve on it. What we've also done is brought in new artwork. So Nuba and Triple H, when we first brought them out, had quite unique style. We called them our modern series at the time. And version 1 was really bright and in your face. Version 2 was really cool, nice and subtle, but still had the luminous green and the purple. Luminous green for Triple H, purple for Nuba. And what we've done is we've evolved that as well, and we brought in the inspiration for the beer. So Noober actually is Esperanto for cloudy. So we try to incorporate that into the branding. So we've got the god of weather and clouds, and put that on the can. So hopefully you guys like the new branding on it.
It certainly feels more fitting to our range. So the next question we have in is, we don't see who it's from, unfortunately, but
At the end.
I have a Brew York pint glass and a tulip glass. Which beers are best in which glass, or doesn't it matter? It definitely matters. Just ask the Belgians. They've got a special glass for every single thing, and they will only serve you a beer in its dedicated glass. So why the glass matters is down to the way in which you perceive flavour. So your perception of flavour is 80% down to aroma. So it's about how the aroma of anything hits your nose. So a tulip like this, where it's more kind of funneled into the top, it concentrates those aromas, and you're going to get whatever flavour aroma characteristic in that bit in a more intense way. So the way in which the kind of glass changes shape towards the top really does have a big impact on your perception of the flavour of that beer. So yes, I don't think we need to go into that too much more, but yes, the glass does have a very, very big bearing on the way in which you are going to perceive the flavour of a beer.
So yeah, we're going to stick to tulip glasses throughout this, more for ease than anything else. But yeah, this style of beer in particular would work really well in a tulip glass anyway.
And that was Sam Brown who sent that question in, so thanks for that one. I don't know if they're related, but we've now got Richard Brown asking a question.
Yeah, so Richard Brown's asked, or mentioned, he said that he loves the fact that we've included brew recipes in the latest subscription box. So if anyone, hopefully quite a few of you guys are subscribers to our Drink Outside the Box. If you're not, get signed up now. We've got about 75 spaces left for next month's pack, which is going to be a Christmas featured one. So we've sold out of most of the beers that are in that pack. So,
yeah, we hope to have more available. We really underestimated your love of Christmas beers.
Christmas Imperial beers. So if you're not already a member, hopefully you enjoyed this and you want to sign up. But in the box, you also get a booklet. In the booklet, we give you a bit of an overview of the different beers we're going to taste. We then go into, we put a homebrew recipe in, so how to brew one of the beers we provided. And then we usually do some sort of food-related thing. So this month's pack was a risotto paired with Hazelfunder, I think. Ant's nodding behind the camera because he's the guy who came up with the recipe. Nuba, sorry. Because the beer was in the pack. We're trying to give you a bit more information about the beers and what they work well with. In particular, the homebrew recipe for this month was Hazelfunder. So it talks about hopping additions and what stage. So one of the things is about hopping at whirlpool stage. So the question is, it says add the hops at whirlpool stage. I presume that means after the boil. Does that mean no hops go in at the start of the boil? And if so, how long do I boil for?
So typically you're going to boil for an hour. You'll get an evaporation rate. You'll lose about 5% of the water doing that. That's enough for all the sciencey bits to go on during the boil and to get the sterilisation that you're going to need. To whirlpool means that you are going to add it in there at a temperature less than boiling. The reason you're going to do that is hops have something in them called alpha acids that create bitterness in beer. And the amount of that bitterness that you're going to pull out is dependent on the temperature. So the lower that you can the temperature that you can introduce the hops at, the more you will just extract the flavour and not the bitterness. So with the modern beer styles like this one we have here, what you're trying to get is maximum flavour, low bitterness. So the only way you can achieve that is to reduce the temperature post-boiling before the addition of the hops. And that's generally done in a bit of kit that you're not going to have at home. It's called a whirlpool. It's not as fancy as it sounds. All it means is you just spin the liquid really, really fast, and that makes the hops fall into a nice cone, at the bottom. And the only reason you're doing that really is so you can then run off the beer at the side and not pull the hops through into the next part of the process.
So without going into too much detail for all the rest of you guys out there who don't homebrew, hopefully we've answered your question there. Got another question from Stephen Guy. As a home brewer, I know London Ale free yeast is dead expensive. Do you harvest your yeast to use again? Do we, Lee? It's dead expensive. Do we use it again?
We didn't with this beer.
Yeah, we know it's very, very expensive when you do it on our scale.
So it's something we are doing more now, and at the new site, absolutely, we're going to do that all the time. Our new operation's going to be much more sophisticated than we have here. But to harvest yeast, it cannot have come in hops, come in contact with hops before you harvest it, because the thing that causes bitterness in beer likes to stick to yeast cells. So you cannot have hops present if you intend to harvest the yeast. And the types of beers that you're going to make with London Ale 3 are like this, and you're going to have lots of hops in there, and you're going to introduce them quite early. So
get that back here. One second. Before we go on to the next bit, I'm going to do my enforced, unfortunately, toilet break while Lee tells you a bit of an update about our new site.
Right, so we have a few updates for you. So if you keep checking our social feeds, you will see that we have put one video up so far that shows you a little bit of our new site, which is at a place called Hanley Park. It's about 15 minutes up the road from where we are now, a place called Oswaldwick. It's a building that's about twice the size of what we have here. And in that video, I think the coolest part of it was we have a stop motion camera. And within that video, you were able to see the flooring get dug, and then the flooring going, the red screed going over the top. So that looks super cool. The next video that we release like that, you're going to be able to see some of the vessels going in, because they have now started to arrive on site. So what we now have on site is our hot liquor tank and our cold liquor tank. So our source of cold water, our source of hot water. Both of them is 14,000 litres each. That's pretty damn big. And we also now have on site 3 5,000 litre fermenting vessels. So that's as big as we currently have here. But what arrives to site next is 4 10,000 litre fermenting vessels. So that's twice as big as anything we have so far. And there are some additional vessels coming as well. So also at site, we have created a massive platform out the front of the building, which is constructed out of 30 tons of concrete. And onto that, we're going to be putting a grain silo that will be able to store 27 tons of uncrushed barley. Because one of the ways in which we're going to make our beers that little bit better, that little bit fresher, is we're going to be milling our grain on site ourselves now. What else have we added? So, as Nadia likes to refer to it, we've made the place look a little bit like B&Q. We've put lots of orange racking everywhere that's going to store some of our ingredients. And our cold store, we've put racking up, which is just a fancy way of saying lots of shelves that we're going to store all of our finished product on. So I've done platforms, I've done vessels, I've done floors, have I missed anything?
Signage.
Right.
Branding. Mr. Brandon. You've got to get the Brandon up there. So,
we've had a signboard that says Slipknot.
Slipknot signs up there. But no, we've got the giant, which is, it looks so cool. We've not done it yet because we're in an industrial estate in the city centre typically. So you don't really find us until you know about us. But at the new site, we put huge signs up. We want delivery drivers in particular to know where we are. But also it's a bigger site. We want to put a bigger. It can accommodate the bigger logo. So
yeah, I didn't really actually appreciate the size of the sign that you had. So I walked around the corner and they'd mocked it out. They'd put a bit of paper up and they would like get me to check the alignment of the letters. No. And I was like, whoa, we're going subtle then.
We want to make sure you guys know where we are if you come and visit us for events and stuff that we hope we'll get to go to. So yeah, we're really pleased. Things have been moving on really well there. And we'll give you a progress update next week on social media. We'll get Nadia to film Lee walking around and talking.
Nice one. So on that note, we've just had a question come in relating to the new site. So what is going to be our first ever brew at the new brewery?
Water?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is technically true. So the first thing you are going to do with the new brew kit is you are just going to fire some water through your system, make sure everything works in the way that it's supposed to work before you waste something that might ultimately become beer. Once you've done that, we will eventually get to the point of making something that will become a beer, and the most likely candidate is going to be a beer called Juice Forsyth. It's one that we sell a lot of. We need to produce in a large quantity, and we want to use our new Daddy 10,000 litre vessels. So the first opportunity to do that will be with a brew of Juice Forsyth.
Yeah, we've got. It feels like it's moved pretty quickly. We've got the first few vessels in this week, and it looks a little bit more like a brewery, but at the same time, it's still quite a way to go. And there's lots of different things in the new kit that we'll need to familiarise ourselves with. Loads of really good enhancements that we get to use. We had a question in from you guys at home asking about what is the most
what's going to be the most expensive bit, Kit? And what do you see as making the most difference?
Yeah, so it's the most expensive bit of kit. We're not talking about, because each vessel on their own are relatively.
Well, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap,
yeah.
but they're not too expensive. The most expensive bit of kit we're adding is our centrifuge. So go on, tell me a little bit about them.
I'm not going to crudely say a number, but it's the best part of 6 figures. And it's called a centrifuge because it does centrifugal separation. So basically you spin the beer really fast, and then the bits that you don't want to be in the beer go to the side and get filtered out, and you just return the beer that retains all the flavour, doesn't have the yeast in that you don't want to have in there anymore. And it is, for a craft brewery like ourselves, the best way of clarifying your beer or getting it to a level of turbidity.
Shelf stableness in particular. Yeah. So it'll make the beer taste fresher, last longer without compromising on flavour. Pretty much. And if we were going to be if we got to the stage where we were brewing beer much on the new site much quicker than we do now, you could turn around your tanks quicker. So at the moment, we brew the beer in a day, it goes into a fermenter, it sits in the fermenter until it's ready. You can speed up that process by putting it through a centrifuge, because you can, like Lee said, you can separate out the solids from the liquids, and what you want in the beer can pass through the centrifuge.
They're amazing pieces of kit, which are going to give us all heart attacks, because when they discharge the solids that they've removed, it's like a shotgun firing.
Yeah. And one of the big things is so a beer in particular like Noober or like Time Traveling Taxi, so a double dry hopped pale ale. So because of the extra hopping additions we do, a centrifuge will make sure that we get more beer per brew. So in terms of percentage of beer out of the brew. So typically a beer like that, 100% liquid goes in, we add the hops and the rest of it. If we're lucky, we'll get 75% to 80% yield, so back out, because of the liquid we lose to all the hop additions. With a centrifuge, our yields will be much higher, which means that we can make the beer for slightly lower cost, which means we can pass that cost on. We're not doing it to try and make more profit, we're trying to make the beer as efficiently as possible.
But the beer will be better and more consistent, because once we have that very fancy piece of kit dialed in, every single time we will have the beer exactly to the specification we intend to have it to. So that's enough of us geeking out about pieces of equipment. There is a final stage of update that I wanted to give. So since the last time we did this, we have actually increased the team somewhat. So we have added to our team Nadia, who's behind the camera over there, our new marketing manager.
She can do the toilet break covers. Next time I jump up to go to the toilet in about 10 minutes, she can jump on camera.
I'm sure she'll love to be on camera. Right. So Nadia's joined us. She's going to work alongside Ant, who's also behind the camera right now, to do our social media, all of the marketing stuff, etc. We've also had a guy called Matt recently join us as head brewer. So Matt's got a great CV, which encompasses Meantime, which is widely regarded as the kind of craft beer training university in the UK. If you want to know anything about producing beer in the best possible way in the UK. Not a bad place to be.
And then more recently, Lauren, our packaging manager, joined us on Monday.
And Lauren's only joined on
First
Monday.
week.
Yeah. So we were hoping to send Lauren up to Fierce.
Yeah, along with yourself and Matt, the trio were going to head up to Aberdeen, but because of the restrictions in place, it's kind of made that a little bit difficult. But yeah, we are still going to do it, so we can't wait to get back up there. And Lee's first visit, I've been up a couple of times now to brew with the guys at Fierce. Lee was desperate to get up there, and now because of lockdown restrictions, isn't it?
We have a fantastic relationship with Fierce, which seems weird because they almost couldn't be any further away from us. But probably the closest friendships that we have in beer are with the guys up at Fierce. We were founded at a similar time. Mm-hmm. We set about producing beers in a similar way.
Same black van.
Same black van?
Yeah.
Have we?
Yeah.
Right. I think we kind of set about producing similar types of beers, similar kind of ethos. So we became aware of each other, and then must have encountered each other at some festival or other, and was it Leeds? And I just hit it off ever since. Yeah.
So yeah, that was going to happen, but it will, but we just have to wait till lockdown restrictions ease a little bit. So yeah, all these new guys have joined us, which is great. It gives us some. Oh, well, the guy. Sorry, it's a generic term I use. The people who've joined us recently, they're quite enjoying the fact that there's new starters, because all of a sudden you're not the newbie anymore, because 1 week later there's someone else joined us. But they're great additions to the team. It's going to make our transition to the new site smoother. It's going to help us run more efficiently. Maybe might need me and Lee get a holiday every now and then, but.
Well, a day off would be nice. But we could start there, maybe. Yeah. What we don't want to happen is to get the kind of standard comment that you get this time, which is the quality has gone down because you've expanded. What we've done is we've invested in expertise that will make sure our quality will go up, not down, as a result of this expansion.
Yeah, and we wanted the guys to join us early because we want to get the procedures underway before we get to the new site. So look at what improvements we can do here, and then carry that principle off into the new site. So we hit the ground running, and they can all see what we're trying to achieve. And yeah, it's exciting times.
So that's rather a long time on the first beer. So I think we're going to go on to the second beer now, unless we have any more questions coming through.
Mickey says that's perfect time, 30 minutes.
No, we're looking good. Right, so on to our next beer. Which is...
Well, I'll do the pouring if you do the talking. You might want to see that one off, though.
Oh, right, okay. Not getting away with that.
There's a bit left in here as well, sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is going to be fun. So about 3 pints beforehand, and then we're averaging 7.7% through this. So what we now have is a somewhat unusual beer. So it's called Life Is Peachy. The reason we've called it Life Is Peachy is, if you watch this a few times, you will know that I like new metal. I'm a 90s kid. I like things like Korn, Slipknot, System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, all that kind of stuff.
Do you say porn?
Korn.
Oh, sorry.
Korn. Every once in a while, you will see us release a beer. Quite often, sour IPAs that have a kind of a new metal connection. So we've done Renegades of Funk, Twisted Transistor, Take This Sour Black.
Yeah.
We've done all these kind of things before. The latest is this one here, which is Life Is Peachy, which was a 1996 release by Korn, their second album. But in terms of what we have here by way of style, so it's a fruited sour IPA. So we've soured it using a bacteria called lactobacillus that produces lactic acid, which gives this kind of clean, crisp sharpness. And then we've hopped it in the way that we would do with an IPA. In sour IPAs, I always like to use Simcoe and then some other hops. Simcoe does something amazing at lower pHs. It turns into what I can only describe as green fruit pastel flavour. It's just this real intense juiciness. So I always try to put that into a sour IPA if I can. And then this is a fruited sour IPA because we've also got in there some apricot and peach puree. And then on top of that, we've also layered in some vanilla as well. So this isn't meant to be like a pastry sour. So it's not meant to be massive fruit. It's not meant to be massive vanilla. What it's supposed to be is a nice balance of acidity, sharpness, fruit, vanilla. So it should all kind of balance out to give this nice, really kind of like easy drinking beer. And particularly with the vanilla on the finish, it should make what is a 7.4% beer stupidly sessionable.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I'm not a huge fan of peach. Peach and apricot isn't really my thing. But one of the things I really like about this beer, which Lee will probably tell you a little bit more about, it reminds me of Goose Willis. So as opposed to some of our pastry sour beers, where it's more about the vanilla and that forward hitting sweetness. This is like your Goose Willis. It's really nice flavours with a tartness that comes through and a bit of fruit in there. So.
Yeah, so we like a fruited sour IPA. Unfortunately, it's not a thing we've done a lot of. And the one that we do have in our range is Goose Willis, but we don't call it that. We call it a gooseberry full sour, but it is dry hopped, so it fulfills the IPA criteria. And it's fruited because it's got gooseberry in there. So really that is a fruited sour IPA, but we just call it a gooseberry full sour.
Yeah, that's the inspiration for that beer. So it's nice to have another one, another beer that we brought out now that's quite similar. And what I like is the peach isn't too prominent. It's more like the peachiness you get from hop additions. So peach from hops, I actually really enjoy the beer. Intense peach is not quite my thing, but I really like that. It's nice.
Yeah, it's the kind of beer that could get you in a lot of trouble.
7.4%.
Yeah, and this is the first of two 7.4s we're doing before we go into a 9.5.
Yeah, you got to start small, I guess, and work your way up.
So what might be quite interesting is, so myself and Wayne are relatively hardened drinkers. You can't really work in this industry without drinking a lot of this stuff. So if you are attempting to drink along, it might be interesting later on to see your comments and maybe tell us how that's going.
Send us some photos. Tag us on social media, your photos of you guys after the drink. So we've got another question in from Matt Barker. So I always like to listen to Korn to take me back to my teenage days. Do you know the Deftones have a beer with Belgian Beaver in the USA? I love Belgian Beaver beer.
I do know, yes, because Belgian Beaver do the peanuts.
Yeah.
What's it called? Peanut. They do the most infamous example of the peanut butter beer. I forget now.
I remember we went to I say I remember Peterborough Beer Festival, and the first visit we went, and there was about 6 or 7 of us, and on the way, no, it's probably about 10 of us, and on the way back, we stopped into the only bar that we could find, and they had cans of that, and we ended up buying 20 cans in carrier bags, and we drank that on the train back.
Yeah, sounds like us.
We are responsible.
So there have been many band tie-ins. It's not something we've managed to do yet. It's something I would like to do in the future. Ant behind our camera, I seem to remember him buying several cans of a Behemoth.
Oh yeah, the KCBC.
Yeah. The KCBC did a time with
our
Behemoth.
friends in New York, KCBC. Yeah. We'd love to do something with them in the new year once the restrictions ease.
And Matt, I've got a question back to you. Have you listened to the new Deftones album, Owns? It is awesome.
It's lost on me. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but what I did want to talk to you guys about is bars. Give you a bit of an update on where we are with our bars. So obviously national lockdown at the moment. We've had to close all the bars. We are open for collections and takeaways in a few of our venues. So yeah, Lee's queue to have a break. The beers are next. Oh, yeah, sorry, getting a bit carried away. But yeah, we really want to open up again. We want you guys to be able to come in at a safe social distance environment, and we felt things were going pretty well. We haven't obviously had any positive COVID tests in our venues, which has been really nice. The guys have worked really hard to make us a safe environment. So we really want to be able to reopen. And we'll watch the space, and hopefully we'll be able to do that in December. But one of the big things we did want to talk to you guys about is, given that we've got nothing else on, like expanding our production, opening up a new brewery, and trying to cope with all these restrictions, we thought we'd keep ourselves pretty busy and see what else was out there. And we've decided the big news we wanted to tell you about today is that we've actually bought a new bar. So we've got a new bar opening, hopefully in December when lockdown restrictions ease a little bit. And we're going to tell you a little bit more, but what we really want from you guys is for you to tell us where you hope our new bar will be. So we've signed the lease, we're in the place, we're doing renovation, but you guys tell us where you hope it'll be. It is a city, I'll give you a hint in that respect. We've got a bar in a city that's not York, so our first ever one. So let us know where you hope it is, and we'll reveal to you later on where it really is, and you'll see what type of surprises we've got up the sleeve.
So you've let the cat out the bag then, eh?
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, we've always... We started this business 2015, things really started going, and then 2016 we opened to the public, and we've pretty much tried to keep things, tried to keep pushing things ahead as much as we can. We want to get beer to you guys, we want to enjoy what we do. We've got something what we think is great, and hopefully the guys who work for us and you guys who drink our beer enjoy it as well. So we don't like to do things by half, so yeah. Yeah, bars, national lockdown, we've got a little bit of time, not much time, we've got a little bit of time in our hands, so we'll try and push ahead with everything else that we've been trying to do. So
if you haven't already realised, you will soon realise soon that we don't like to spin one plate. We like to spin many, many plates at once.
Well, that's the advantage of it starting with the two of us, because we can focus on different things, and then we can build great teams around us who can help us achieve those things. So yeah, we started at a pretty good advantage with two super passionate people who, well, I say burn things at both ends, but we...
Well, no, I think we are both big believers in work hard, play hard. Definitely. Probably a bit too much of a believer in the work hard side of things.
Yeah.
Sorry, Polly. Sorry, Sally.
Yeah, sorry. But, we do play hard as well. I mean, I can't believe one of us fell asleep on a toilet at the CBF and woke up at 3 in the morning. And
glad you say that one person was not me.
I've heard the rumours that the person was called Lee. Is that true, Nadia?
Ah,
The story was that we thought it was you.
right. Yeah, that's a good point. So a certain
In
person.
London, everyone thinks it's you.
Yeah. So London Craft Beer Festival. A certain person.
We don't need to go into the
A
details.
certain person wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning in the toilet and has to let himself out of a fire escape, and somehow everybody in London thinks it was me. I wasn't even at this beer festival. So
he was asleep in the toilet. No one saw him because he was asleep in the toilet.
My classy reputation has been stained by this.
Back onto the subject. So life is peachy.
Well, I don't know that we need to say too much more about the beer. All I would like to conclude by saying is we love sours here. You must notice that. We do a lot of them, whether it be sour IPAs, pastry sours, fruit sours, whatever it might be. And we just love what dropping the pH can do to hops, can do to fruit. You probably spotted a recent release, was called Che Guava, now called Viva la Guavolution. What pH does to certain fruit, in particular guava, is incredible. Yeah. So you eat a guava, you go, nah, it's all right. But you drop the pH with something like guava, and wow, that becomes something completely different.
So one of the things that we know what styles we like, we know what styles have worked for us in this kit. We decided that when we go to the new brewery, we want to make sure we make our lives, well, not lives easier, but let's accommodate the things that we know work well for us. So we've got a pretty comprehensive brew house, so we can brew big batches of sour beer and be able to move it into a vessel, carry on brewing as if that wasn't there, and then resume the sour. So sour beer is a pale ale, for example, we'll put through our brew house in about 7 to 8 hours. So we'll start the brew, we'll finish the brew, and we'll transfer it to one of our fermenters, and then we'll leave it there to ferment and make alcohol. That happens in 7 to 8 hours. A sour beer, there's a similar process happens, about half of that time goes through, and then we need to keep the part processed liquid, and then we need to sour it, and then we need to finish it the next day. So a sour beer takes twice as long as a standard beer to make. So we're aware of that, which is why one of the reasons we can't brew massive batches of sour beer. Whereas the new site, we've tried to factor that in. We tried to make it as easy as possible and brew those big batches.
We've ended up in quite a privileged position in that rather than buying a kit off a shelf, we've been able to say, we want our next brew house to be able to do this, and do that, and to do this. So yeah, we now have something that will allow us to produce sours, and it won't inhibit us from producing all the other things that we love to brew and you love to drink. But anyway, we really do need to get into more questions now.
Yeah, well, I just got one from Joe, who manages the market tap for us in Pocklington. It's not more of a question, it's more of a advice and guidance for you guys. Apparently, Life is Peachy goes awesome with katsu curry. So yuzu street food, katsu curry and market tap, and Life is Peachy. So give that a go.
Right, so the next question we have is from Keith Bull. Are there any sours from other brewers you really rate?
Trolltunga.
I was going to say that one.
So Buxton did a collab with Lervig, which is the inspiration for Goose Willis. So it's basically a gooseberry sour, and it's really, really good. That was a massive inspiration on us. So that's way up there.
Right. Apparently it's Nadia's favourite sour.
Oh, right. So yeah, so that's definitely up there.
I mean, we've got to mention North with their TFGs as their
triple fruited goes is amazing, but for me, more local and so underrated. Bad Seed Funk
and Funk too.
Funking good. It is really. We've known the Bad Seed guys for a long time. I've known them. I've been a little fanboy before we even had the brewery, and working close with those guys has been awesome. And they make they used to make, I don't know if they still do, a saison, and they soured that
in a red wine barrel, I think it was.
And their funk is really
good.
So
really
if
good.
you ever get a chance to try it, it's brilliant.
London Craft, or Brew London, as it was this time round, used to be.
And each year when they bring the new batch out, so those guys make awesome sours. There's so many. And it's not just because she sat the other side of the camera, but Brick, Nadia's former employee, make amazing sours. That's one of my favourite drinks. Beers, those guys.
I would say it depends on where you are on your sour journey. So if you're starting out, I would start with kettle sours like we make, that Brick do excellently. If you are really, really into your sours, you may want to progress to what the Belgians do. They really are the most accomplished purveyors of sours. I could geek out for hours about that stuff.
Go on, geek out then.
I have a massive collection of that stuff. So, yeah, cheers, dude. But I think you should probably stay closer to home. So you've got the likes of Duration, Little Earth. Who else is doing great sour game? I think Daya have just started to get into mixed firm now. Vault City, who are largely now doing kettle sours. They're up in Edinburgh, but I believe are now starting to diversify into mixed and sponta. And I suppose I should probably give ourselves a little bit of a plug here, because the State of Mind series, of which this barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko is going to be part, is soon going to be expanded to include sour, spontaneous, hybrid beers that are all going to be produced here in our original site. So with the bulk of the production moving to the new site up the road, what we're going to start to do here is to age a lot of beers in barrels, produce some interesting sours, lots more barrel-aged beers. We're super excited about what we're going to be doing here. We're actually working with a lady called Charlotte Freeston, who has just left Tempest Project, which was Beavertown's souring project. So we're looking to get our project up off the ground here soon. Many of the sours to which I refer take months, if not years, to perfect. So you're not going to see any output from the souring project anytime soon, but we do intend to bring you a few more of these barrel aged beers in the near future.
So we did something actually a while back. We one of the collabs we did with Fierce was their Fierce by Nature. So it was peach.
That was peach something, wasn't it?
Peach sour. It's still in barrel, so it's still actually souring. So that'll be pretty interesting because it's proper wild sour, natural mixed firm beer. So I look forward to trying that.
So we do have another question coming there from Adrian Cotton. The wife is asking when Katy Berry will be rebrewed.
You don't need to blame the wife. I love this beer. I drink it all the time. It's literally, if it's on in the tap room, it's like, yeah, Katy Berry. It's a definitely go-to beer.
Although, if you can get it, and this may prove hard because we have sold out of it now, our Christmas pastry sour, Dreams of Brew York, is a bit like a Katy Berry but better, in my opinion.
So it's a big sales pitch then. If you haven't tried it, then sign up to our subscription pack and you'll get it next month. Maybe.
Yeah.
We can't tell you that for definite, but maybe you'll get it in the next month's subscription pack.
Yeah, so we're super happy with how the Christmas beers have gone. The this year's pastry sour Dreams of Brew York is cranberry and blueberry and vanilla, and it has all the drinkability of Katy Berry, but with even more kind of fruity punch, and it's 6.5%.
Yeah, Katy Berry was relatively low.
4.5, wasn't it? Yeah. Right.
So Richard Brown, I'm sure I've had a question from him before. Ever considered a Branston pickle mini cheddar flavoured beer, Lee? And behind the camera has got his head in his hands, shaking his head.
Right. Which I mean, Ant loves his cheese. I love my cheese. I would rather consume it independent of my beer though. I have to say we've done some mental beers in our time. But I'm sorry, Richard, but I cannot see us doing a Branston pickle mini cheddar flavoured beer. I suggest you take one of our beers instead and you chew on some of those while you drink them.
Yeah, the only cheese inspired beer that I've had, and I've got so much respect for these guys at Weird Beard. They're awesome brewers.
Oh, he's only gone and gone there.
But yeah, they did a cheese beer for Brewdog Cola Fest one year. It was interesting, and it was not a flavour that I'd like to replicate. But it did what it said on the tin. It tasted like cheese on a stick, cheese and pineapple on a stick.
So, if you are a brewer, there are certain off flavours that you are trained to perceive and to avoid. And one of them, without getting into the chemical side of things, tastes like cheese. So to put cheese into a beer would be a very weird thing, because that's what we've been trained to try and ensure doesn't appear in beer.
But yeah, if you get set the challenge, brew a cheesy beer, that's the way to do it, and hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Richard. You won't be seeing that one anytime soon.
So Ian, Hayhow. Ian Hay has asked how do you add vanilla? Pods, extract? Is it incredibly? Yes. Is it incredibly expensive adjunct? Yes. Vanilla is expensive. If you cook with vanilla at home or bake with it, you know it's expensive. We don't get it much cheaper. We struggle. Vanilla is one of those, it's like gold, isn't it? If you find a supplier who gives you good quality vanilla at a good price, you're onto a winner.
So, I mean, we probably get as good a price as we're going to get, but we're buying it in like 10 litres, 20 litres at a time in massive big plastic like jerry cans. And even then, we're spending probably approaching £1,000 each order. It's seriously expensive stuff. And I don't know what went on in the worldwide economy like about 2-3 years ago, but the prices of vanilla really, really rocketed.
That's extract then.
We use extract, but
yeah,
we used to make our own.
We used to, yeah.
Yeah,
we used
and
to
now we get
basically-
extract. Yeah.
We used to slice pods, scrape, basically like you would at home. But yeah, extract, it's intense, very expensive, but yeah, you need that flavour. So Stephen Scott has had a Quadimodo before the tasting, and it was amazing. I'm glad you've tasted it because I haven't tasted it.
I'm loving your style though, Stephen.
Do you have any plans for more
we're
Belgian?
concerned about, because we had like maybe a 3.7% pint or one or two of them beforehand. So you've had an 11% quad before attempting to drink 4 beers at average. So yeah,
Yeah, 11%. 11%.
Yeah. So you've had an 11% quad before attempting to drink 4 beers that average at 7.7. Yeah. Please do let us how your evening goes, Stephen.
My partner Sal's watching us at the moment, so hi Sal. Maybe we'll have one after this. don't tell Polly.
But the actual question was, do you have any more plans for Belgian style strong beers?
Yeah,
So-
strong beers.
So that particular beer, we are rebrewing in a few weeks, so we can barrel age some of it.
Yeah, it's going to be in barrels. That's going to be intense. Yeah. Really good.
And I don't see the big Belgian beer side of things ever being a massive part of what we do, but it's something we like to kind of do every once in a while.
There's certain, I feel there's certain styles and beers that you don't need to go there because people do it so well. And obviously the Belgians do it so well. So we went to America a couple of years back for a beer festival and poured our beer, and they're like, oh, what beers are you going to take? And a lot of breweries are saying, oh, we'll take our New England beer. It's like, you don't go to New England and take an English attempt at a New England beer. They were saying to us, bring your
Let's go sell some ice to the Eskimos.
let's bring some English bitters. And I'm hoping he's still watching him. But Tom from Roosters sent me a message earlier, so I think he's still watching. And that's how we got to know those guys really well. So we were there, and it was just really interesting to see that people were thinking, oh yeah, we'll take American style beers and try and sell it back to the Americans. Whereas we went there thinking, we'll do our own thing. If people like it, they like it, which is great. But the thing that weirdly people love in Portland, where we went, Portland, Maine, was English bitters
And strong, like ESP,
really
strong
strong.
English.
And Sam Smith's brewery, it was literally the pinnacle. That's what they all wanted to, the beers that we took there to taste.
Yeah, I remember we went into this, it was kind of like a cellar bar. I think it was like back end of one of the nights. And then I ended up drinking with this American dude, and you're just surrounded by this Sam Smith's branding, which is ridiculous. And I've drunk with this guy all night, and then I watched him walk up the stairs, jump in his pickup and drive off.
Because, unless you do something wrong, apparently in America you can just drive.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. If you drive in a straight line, you're fine. Only if you swerve do they have the rights to stop you. Yeah. Absolutely insane.
Thankfully, we're a bit more sensible in this country. But yeah, I got away from Tom actually. So he is still watching. But one of the funny things that happened on that trip, Tom. No, I'm not going to do any embarrassing stories, but one of the weird things was we were stood in one of the. It was our. We had a mini tap takeover on one of the bars, and I was stood at the bar with Tom, and a random guy tapped on my shoulder. Like, oh, how are you doing, Tom? And randomly, nothing to do with the beer fest, brewery, anything like that. So, some guy from Yorkshire was in Portland and knew him and said hello, and he apparently worked out there. It was just such a apparently small world.
Small world, indeed.
The strange. Anyway, while you're watching, Tom, we need to sort that collab out. We've been talking about it, so let's get it sorted soon. New year and the new site.
So I think we're probably ready for another beer.
Tony.
So have we got any more questions while we wait for that beer? So Richard Broom, not to be mistaken with Richard Brown, I'd like to propose some licorice-based stouts. Any plans? Nicely links to moving on to next beer. Okay, so in my homebrew days, I used to make a licorice stout. It was one of my favourite homebrew recipes. I loved it. Unfortunately, licorice is a very divisive flavour. So I haven't quite had the balls to brew that on a commercial scale because I'm not overly sure we would sell a licorice beer in the quantity that we would need to sell it.
It also gives you the squits, apparently. I don't eat licorice, so it's not my, it's not me saying.
Okay, apparently it might give you some digestive problems as well. So it's something I would like to do, maybe down the line, who knows. Licorice is an interesting one. To get licorice flavour into a beer, the key is not licorice. What you actually use is star anise. So you create a stout, and into the fermenter, you flood in star anise. And probably about 3 days contact time with your star anise, and your stout is going to taste like licorice. So never say never, Richard. No current plans, though.
Nice, that. It's wait till we're on camera to finally try the beer. So Pumpkin Dark Side was a collab we did with S43, formerly known as Sonnet 43. And it's something we've been talking about for a while. So pumpkin beers are super divisive. They're a bit like Marmite. People want to like them, but they don't. And usually it's to do with the spices, actually, not the pumpkin.
But I think a lot of that is people thinking they're not going to like it. How many people have actually tried pumpkin beers?
Exactly, and well-made pumpkin beers. It's not like something you crack out and you go, oh yeah, I'm going to try this for the first time and brew an amazing beer.
Because we had to have our minds changed.
Yeah, so one of the York's an awesome city. It's super small. We can walk from one side of the city to the other in about 15 minutes, and because of that, we've got lots of cool pubs and bars nearby, and we meet some pretty interesting people. And we go and drink quite regularly in the Maltons, which is a really awesome bar near the train station. And we met a guy called Travis, maybe 5 years ago, was it? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Guy from Texas who comes to the UK 2 or 3 times a year, spends a lot of time here, and he's a beer nut. He knows a lot about beer, and he buys a lot of beer. And we got to know him, and he started doing a little tasting session. And when we got the brewery, he was like, "Can I host it there?" Like, yeah, of course you can. So this is he literally turns up with some amazing, super rare American beers, and all we do is turn up and drink his beer. But he invites lots of friends to drink the beers and stuff, and all we have to do in return is provide a venue and provide some interesting beers ourselves. So really.
But one of the beers that he introduced us to, actually, I think he brought quite a few beers over that had pumpkin in, because he seems to have this obsession with beers with pumpkin in. And one of the ones he introduced us to was something called Pumpkinator, or The Pumpkinator, which is from his home city in Houston, Texas. It's from a brewery called St. Arnold. And I've got to admit, before I got introduced to that beer, I thought I would hate pumpkin beers. Never thought I'd like them. He introduced me to that, or us to that, sorry. And I was like, yeah, wow, okay.
Yeah,
maybe I need to be drinking some pumpkin beers.
So for this one in particular, so that was a good reason why we wanted to try and make one. And we actually started talking to the S43 guys a year ago, back in February. So February this year, before all the shitstorm kicked off, we were at what's called Brew LDN. The year before it was called
Craft Beer Rising, yeah. That's when I remember first talking to them, yeah.
And I've known the guys, formerly Sonnet 43 guys, for a while, because they're Raven Milk Stout, Bourbon
Milk
really,
Stout,
really
yeah.
bit. And I remember talking to them quite a bit, and then they brought in a new brewer from America, and basically
Alex.
At the time, it was the American guy with a mustache, but as we know now, it's Alex. And Alex at the festival brought a couple of beers across, and they were really, really good. And I was like, well, you know, I always liked your dark beers, your pale beers are just as good now. And we said we'd brew a beer together, and then because of everything else, it never happened. And then we finally got the chance during lockdown, and then it went to shit again, unfortunately.
So we were due to go up to Durham the day before. No, sorry, we were due to go there and then the day before we found out they were going into lockdown the day after. So then we couldn't go up to Durham. As it then turned out, the head brewer Alex's daughter was born a week early, so he wasn't going to be present anyway. So we worked on the recipe with Alex. So then the S43 team, thankfully, were able to still knock out the beer, and they've done a cracking job with that. So that was a complete mess. And then we scheduled a home leg here, where Alex then came and joined us, and that was literally just before we went into national lockdown again.
So it was good. We managed to sort it all out. The downside is what we love about collabs is not just the actual brewing the beer, come at the recipe, brewing the beer, doing the that side of stuff. It's the social side afterwards where we get to have a beer with each other. We get to sit in the bars, tap rooms, and introduce other people and get to talk about the stuff.
And see some of your local singers. Like,
this is
had we been able to, we would love to have shown Alex. Why am I saying Mark? Alex. I don't know what I'm saying. I have no idea. We would love to have shown Alex the sights of York, taking them to the Maltons, to Trembling Madness, all of these great venues. And we would love to have done a tour of Durham.
Yeah, but we will 100% do that. We just won't be able to do it until probably the new year now. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this beer. This is really cool because
so we haven't actually talked much about what is in here.
We've done this quite a few times. We've basically we've talked on different sessions about collab beers and how if you don't put anything into it, you won't get much out. This is a great example of where you put something into it. You work really close with the brewery. You talk about the recipe. You make sure that you get what you input into the ingredients and the recipe itself. And then, yes, we couldn't make it up for the brew day, but we couldn't have done much more. And if we'd have made it for the brew day, we'd have literally had a few beers and not really done much brewing. So this is a good example of when you work closely together, you get the right result. It's a cracking beer. I'm really
it's a great balance of ingredients. So there's a lot in there. You've got like 6 types of malt.
Yeah, really complex in the malt bill.
They've put about 4 different spices in. So should we see if I can reel them off without looking at that?
Spicy.
Nutmeg, cinnamon, allspice, ginger.
What do you call them, ginger?
They've also then worked with their local coffee roasters, Pink Lane, and they put some coffee, Costa Rican coffee into this. And I think what they've done here is they've struck a really great balance between all those different ingredients.
Yeah, it's really nice. And we obviously have had a few issues and challenges with IP, intellectual property and trademark infringement. So we don't tend to do that anymore. So when the guys sent us the prototype for the can, we're like, yeah, I can't see what would go wrong there. Yeah, let's go with it.
The guys at S43, they recently did a beer that it was like the Snickers one. What was the phrase from the Snickers advert? And you know when the BA Brackers with the tank thing and Ant's googling it. We'll work that out in a bit. So they named their beer after that particular phrase, and it looked like a Snickers bar. And they got one of our favourites, cease and desist. And they made great publicity out of it. And in this, they might be going a little bit towards a certain famous coffee shop.
But it is a one-off batch, and it's all out now, so don't worry about it.
How was it called? It was a great beer, by the way. Apparently, Ant's waiting for the internet connection to work, so we better move on.
But so the other thing that was pretty interesting, when we brew styles that are a little bit less of the, not what we normally do, we always like to have a nosy and see what the TripAdvisor of beer Untapped tells us. And the best one we saw on this beer was 0.5 out of 5 on Untapped. Just needed to make sure I don't like beer, and I don't.
So if you are a regular viewer, you'll know that every once in a while we have a little kickback against the feedback that comes across on Untapped. So this we've mentioned here because it's a classic example. So you have someone who doesn't like beer, yet they've downloaded an app that is purely for presenting your views on beer, and they've downloaded this app, they've then gone in and they've gone, I'm going to give that beer 0.5 out of 5, and then they've written a comment to say, didn't think I liked beer, and do you know what? I don't like beer. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm saying that on behalf of S43. This is very much why the Untapped is the TripAdvisor of the beer world.
So we've got a question through from Matt Sullivan. The beer is quite uncarbonated. Is that intentional? And if so, what's the reasoning? So we went there on Cannon Day, so I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem like it would be intentional because with stouts in particular, lower carbonation works better. You get like more of the flavour coming through. It just suits the style. Yeah. Colder beers. Sorry, go on, mate.
No, all I was going to say was that you're trying to replicate cask beer in a can, really.
So dark beer, if you've ever tried cask beer, which is your traditional hand-pulled beer, dark beer works so well in that format because you get all the flavour coming through. It's a warmer temperature, it tastes thicker, fuller bodied, and when you're brewing a dark beer, even if it's on keg, you want to replicate that thick, full body, so lower carbonation works better. You get great examples of stouts with high carbonation that work well, but if I assume this is what S43 were going for with it, that we wanted to get the body going right.
Well, we wouldn't have done any different. This is exactly how we would have represented a beer like this.
The only other way, if you are super rich and you have an amazing canning machine, Nitro, we're amazing on Nitro. So think of the big brand Guinness. So Guinness have their beer on Nitro, so you get tiny bubbles, which gives you the lighter, fuller body from that. The bubbles make a difference. We did Tonkoko on Nitro last year, which was awesome. We just had to spend a lot of time and effort to try and get that result where if you had the right kit, you do it.
Which you can do in a keg, in a kind of Heath Robinson kind of way. To do in a can, you have two options. Widgets. You have widgets, or you actually inject liquid nitrogen into your beer just before you present the lid and seal it. And I don't know if I told you this, Wayne, but I did get a quote for that. I'd heard on the grapevine that our canning line could be converted for about £15,000, which I thought, yeah, maybe. We do a lot of dark beers, and I got the quote through, and it was £60,000. I was like, yeah, we're not doing that.
That's nuts. Yeah. Absolutely nuts. So hopefully we'll get a few more questions and we can tell you a little bit about...
well, before we get the questions in, what we can do is we can tell you about what you can look forward to in the next session. So if you're a subscriber, you'll be getting the usual 9 beers. Next time, we're going to be drinking 6 of them because me and Wayne are a little bit stupid. So because it's Christmas, we're going to do a special Christmas gift pack or subscription pack next time. And we're going to extend this session to 6 beers. We're going to try and do it in a similar time frame. We will have to extend it a bit, but we don't want to hold you guys up too long. And what we're going to be doing next time is 3 beers, and then we're going to go into the Christmas trilogy.
Christmas mode. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Lee's going to dress as Rudolph, I'll dress as Elf, and it'll be, we don't want to ruin all the surprises. But no, we've got some pretty cool beers.
I thought we'd already decided. I was going to get a Slipknot shit Christmas jumper.
Shitnot.
A shitnot.
So yeah, the next month's box is going to be pretty cool. And I don't want to keep hammering home that you should subscribe if you haven't already. We try to do these things as economically as possible. For example, barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko would have probably cost a quarter of the subscription pack. You guys got it as part of the pack. We want to try and be inclusive. We want to try and give you guys some access to some pretty cool stuff. So these are great value for money subscription packs, but we only have about 70 left for next month. So if you haven't got a subscription, you want to do it soon because there's not many, and we're in this weird position, but it's November. We don't have any of our Christmas beers available to sell because they're all saved for the subscription box.
And perhaps that's us misplanning, but we did make more than we've ever made before. We just underestimated your kind of demand for these things. So next year we'll make a lot more, but we can't do a lot about that now.
So when Lee came into our board meeting, he was like, I've got a great idea, let's make 3 Christmas beers this year. We're like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like, with one Christmas beer, it's hard enough to make sure you sell it all before December, let alone a national lockdown kicks in. So, yeah.
So we made 3 and we sold them all almost before November came around.
Fairy Tale, our core Christmas beer, is still in cask, so hopefully pubs will open and we'll get it back out there again in December. So, fingers crossed. We did get a question in from Stephen Scott. Does this beer contain caffeine? It definitely contains coffee, so yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
And to elaborate on that, the way in which S43 have introduced the coffee into this is it's called cold brew coffee. So basically the way in which you would create coffee, they've done it without heat. They have steeped the coffee beans in cold water, extracted it that way, and then that has gone into the beer.
Which is an interesting way to do it because we do it through our infuser. So we have an old vessel that we bought from Bad Seed years ago that we put filters in, and we use it as a coconut infusion vessel. And that's now our anything infusion vessel, so coffee.
We use that many weird ingredients. We now have 3 different sizes of infusion vessel for doing all these kind of things in. And coffee would go through our smaller one. Okay. So, but yes, absolutely, this has caffeine in. So you may experience problems sleeping tonight, unless you've drunk as much as Wayne and I will have by the end of this.
So we've got another one from Haley. Would you consider making it? Oh, I won't finish that question. Would you consider making a Turkish Delight stout?
I think we know Wayne's opinion on this one.
Roses are good for growing in the garden.
So I'm probably going to break the mold. I think, yeah, the foundation of Turkish Delight is rose water. It is a very divisive flavour. I'm a bit weird in that I don't especially like rose water, but I do like Turkish Delight. But it's because it was my granddad's favourite treat. He would always have a Fry's Turkish Delight. And
he'd comfortable there.
Yeah.
So it's one of those weird things for me. It's like Turkish Delight, the flavour I probably like now, and I know actually Siren do a Turkish Delight beer, but I've not tasted it because when people talk about Turkish Delight, it makes me think of the gelatin type thing around. You bite into what I thought was going to be a chocolate bar, but it's horrible rosy jelly.
And it wasn't. It was quite firm, wasn't it? It wasn't like particularly soft. Yeah.
Not for me, unfortunately. I think we've got another question coming in, and while we're doing that, I'm just going to go and have a chat with a couple of guys back there.
So, but you should never rule out any ingredient. We've talked about licorice, we've talked about rose water. Sometimes it's about the way in which you use them, it's about what you combine them with. I think I've said on one of these previous sessions that I don't like lagers, don't particularly like rose water. But I had a lager from Garage Project across in New Zealand that combined rose water and I think chili and pink peppercorn maybe. And that all sounds like it shouldn't work, but it did. It was a magnificent beer. I really, really do not like lager, but I really did enjoy that particular beer. So they struck the right balance there. So next question that's come in is, shame no Brew York Advent Calendar, maybe next year. It's something that would be nice to aim towards, but to have 12 beers available in the right volume at the right time, right now would have been a huge challenge. Next year, maybe that's more achievable. So yeah, watch this space. We'll have to see where we get to with that one. Okay, so do we have any more questions? They're just slowly firing in. Uncomfortable pause waiting for the questions to come in.
No, don't worry, I'm back. So
most fruits have been used in beers to flavour them over the years. So how about veggies? Maybe a beetroot beer. Beetroot is quite sweet, but earthy flavoured. The colour would be awesome too. Now there's an idea. And that was from Kerry. I think we might know Kerry. You think that's Kerry who joined us a few months
Oh
ago?
yeah, sorry, yeah, from the live tasting, yeah.
Yeah.
So beetroot, especially in brownies and things like that, works really well in in sweet desserts.
In a brownie? I've never had it. I wouldn't
Oh,
know.
you probably have. You probably didn't realise it. If you ever get like a really moist, nice brownie, it's usually things like beetroot in there. So
So I don't associate them with having huge flavour. Massive colour, absolutely. But I don't particularly associate beetroot with having big flavour. So it's something that Polly, my wife, always buys, and she will chuck it in with a salad. And it's like, well, it's just like rubbery pink stuff. It doesn't actually taste as much. Or purple, not pink.
I was going to say, salad's not my speciality, so.
Well, I've been trying to lose some work, but yeah. So I think, Kerry, the summation of that is, again, never say never, but no immediate plans.
So we've also got one from Ian Hay. How about
someone else who joined us at a very recent audience session?
This is one I don't think people would buy, but I would like to try. How about a Marmite Stout then? Maybe a toast and Marmite Imperial Stout. I love Marmite and toast. So.
And I'm the other side of that equation that proves the 50-50 divisiveness of that.
Well, maybe we add some baked beans, Marmite and beans, Imperial Stout.
I'm not with you on that one.
I think it'd work, but maybe not everyone's with us. So we're possibly a little bit early, but I'm just looking at that can on my right and thinking piece de resistance. We probably need to get to the bad boy stage, don't we? We've got another question before then. Mark Curran, have you ever made a wheat beer? Is this a style you would consider in the future?
So we have made several. I wouldn't say we've ever made a successful one.
No, my favourite ever feedback I ever got from a customer was we made
outside
a beer
the Bluebell.
yeah, we made a beer called Black Beret, which is really, in my opinion,
no,
really,
was it
nice.
the raspberry one?
Oh, sorry, raspberry. And it was a really nice raspberry wheat beer, and it's a wheat beer. It's going to taste like a wheat beer, but it's got a bit of raspberry flavour. It was nice. It worked pretty well for me. And then went up to one of the Fossgate festivals. We stood outside the Bluebell, and a guy found the landlord at the Bluebell, and he was like, "Oh, who makes this raspberry that you're serving?" He's like, "Oh, it's Brew York. Wayne from Brew York's over there." So the guy actually came up to me, and he's like, "Oh, you're one of the guys who made raspberry." I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "It was literally the worst beer I've ever tasted in my life. I hate it. I like Mean Times so-and-so beer, but your beer is nothing like that. It's horrible."
So we were both there, and he gave Wayne this feedback, and I just went, I'll be at the bar, Wayne. You're way more diplomatic than I am.
I was like, "Oh, I'm glad you took your time to work your way through the crowd, come and find me to tell me that's the worst beer you've ever had. I will definitely change everything I ever do in my brewing career because you think that's not enough."
Yeah, I mean, don't take it that we don't appreciate criticism or anything. But we were there on a Sunday with our partners, just having a drink at a street festival, and this guy has sought us out to tell us that he thinks one of the beers we made is the worst thing he's ever drunk in his entire life. And, thanks, dude. Really appreciate that.
If it was, if it was really bad and we were embarrassed about it or something like that, then yeah, I'd have probably cringed away or something. I was like, this is actually a really nice example of a wheat beer. You probably don't like wheat beers, not as opposed to, but anyway. So we've always shied away from wheat beers because they are a little bit divisive, because they do have a different taste to other beers. So we got one from Keith Bull. Have any of your beers been more successful with customers than you initially thought they would be? Likewise, has any beers been been a massive hit with customers but didn't do as well? So that's a really interesting one. So when we first brought out Rhubarber Streisand, we thought it was going to be a one-off seasonal beer, and it was. We were really pleased. We were like, "This is going to be like rhubarb and custard. People are going to love it." But we didn't think it would go nuts, and it literally went nuts. The year we launched it, it became our biggest selling beer because people kept buying it. Every time we brewed it, people kept buying it, and every festival we poured it, everything it just kept selling out. And we don't drink it very much ourselves because it's I don't know, we kind of brewed it, we liked it, we drank it, and we just got a little bit bored of tasting it, and then the public were going nuts for it. So because of that, it was a bit of a surprise when it became so popular. And then we've brewed other beers, beers that we love as brewers, that we drink and love. So Kiwi is a great example of that. Black Eagle. We brewed loads of beers that aren't quite what they seem. So dark beers that taste like pales and vice versa. So Kiwi in particular is a great one that we love and the brewing public love, but unfortunately you guys, as the general public, don't like it. You don't drink it, and it never really works well for us. We don't really brew it anymore.
Well, in the last session we did like this, we did talk about good shooting. We talked about styles that we would like to see around a bit more, but we can't produce because they don't sell in the way that we'd like them. And Kiwi was one of those. India stouts, anything that's dark and kind of hoppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the paradox, isn't it? So we brewed the Black Dog of Horse Bay, first ever brewed up cola fest beer. That was awesome. That tastes like Holy Cowbell, Beavertown inspiration. That was really cool.
Yeah, where did that go? Did you see they brought back 3 of the original beers recently though?
Oh,
8 Ball Rye,
yeah,
Smog Rocket. What was the other one? Oh, Black Betty.
Whoa, Black Betty.
Yeah. Which were all incredible beers. I don't know why they ever went away. But, yeah. So, next question we have is, we are waiting for a version of extra brownie pints with mint added. No. Will I be waiting long?
Yes.
Yeah, you probably will be waiting long. I suggest you pop to your local supermarket, buy some mint.
Brush your teeth and then have a can of extra brownie.
We are, however, brewing that beer again next week. So in about a month's time, you will be able to get that, and you can either brush your teeth like Wayne suggests and drink it, or you can acquire your own mint and add it.
Unfortunately, mint in a beer is really difficult. We've got loads of divisive beers, but that's really divisive. And I don't know, wider audience, like literally here in the background, mint in a beer, yay or nay?
Yay! Nay!
Right. No. From our straw poll of about 4 people, we are, I think, about 75% against, 25% in favour.
So
Cheers, dude.
That means no.
So, yeah, in a democratic world, apart from a Trump world, that's a definite no. So, in a Trump world, we need a recount.
I'd like to say this is the last beer. Well, no, I wouldn't like to say. This is the last beer of the tasting. Apparently we need to change the...
Hint taken. Have I got the right wheel?
Yeah, this is something we've been waiting a long time for. So
I'm supposed to be talking at this point, aren't I?
Barrel-aged cherry Tonkoko.
So we're super proud of this beer. So in Tonkoko, we now basically have a beer that has launched 2 series. So there was the original that started with... Well done, cameraman. He was trying to share some of this with someone else and just decided to knock the camera out of the way. So we have launched 2 series of beers with this. So the very first one started with the 4.3% beer that was based on coconut, cacao nibs, tonka and vanilla, and that was brewed with our local branch of Camera and released at York International, yeah, they wish, York Beer Festival. York Beer Festival in September 2016.
OG Tonks.
Yeah. So that was the original. And since then, this is now the 6th iteration. We gradually went up in strength. We've done some barrel-aged versions. And this is the 6th iteration. And it now launches another series of beer that we mentioned this earlier. We're going to call it the Billy Joel series. Yeah. We're calling it the...
BJ series.
We're calling it
BJ First Edition?
It's the Brew York State of Mind series. So it is going to be the very, very best of us. So it's going to be barrel-aged things, things that we're going to invest more time, expertise, and expenditure into producing. So the next one you're going to see after this one is a barrel-aged version of a beer we did with Turning Point, which is Mocker Man Randy Savage. The third release, we do not know yet. We have a few things in the stores, and we're going to work out what will come later. But this is a barrel-aged version of our fifth version, which was cherry Tonkoko. So we took all those flavours, we layered in some cherry on top of that, and then what we did was we aged it in 4 different Burgundy barrels. And when we looked up the wine names that came from these Burgundy barrels, apparently each of these would have sold for like between 70 and 90 pounds a bottle. So we got lucky. We landed on some really, really nice Burgundy barrels, and we've then aged that beer in those barrels for all of a year.
Right, yeah, it says 12 months on the can.
By the time it was probably more like 14 months by the time we got to this point. So we've aged it 14 months in that, and what has resulted, I think, I am going to say this, but I think we've got a magnificent beer here. It's very different to what went into the barrel. Yeah. So the coconut's gone subtle.
Massively.
I think the tonka's died away a bit. I think the chocolate's got bigger, but the kind of red wine character and the cherry play together very nicely. It's almost a little bit port-esque.
It's so luxurious. It's basically we've done some really cool barrel-aged beers that we're super proud of. We've won awards for them, and we've done all sorts of different things with them. But that was more of a bourbon barrels are quite forgiving. You can put beer into a bourbon barrel and it will come out tasting awesome. This is a different kettle of fish. This is like a really different barrel. We didn't know what we were going to get from this, and Cherry Tonkoko was a pretty unique beer to put in there. And first time I tried this, I was like, oh, that's intense. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, I am sure. Oh my God, I want more of that. And this was about 10 o'clock in the morning when we were doing the first tasting. I was like, yeah, might try.
Yeah, it's a crap life, isn't it?
That's pretty cool. No one's going to like that. Whoa, my God. And then I had a can at home a few weeks later after we'd first gone down. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. And this is the first time I tried it in about a month. And yeah, I'm super pleased and super proud of the guys for what this is doing now. It's just smooth. It's different. It's smooth. It's relaxed. I don't know.
I'll be honest. I was worried because Cherry Tonkoko for me wasn't anywhere near the finest of the series of Tonkoko beers we've done. It didn't have enough cherry. I thought the earlier iterations we'd done had been better, but then we've aged that version, and I think what has resulted out of that, I'm like, yeah, well, okay, yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's really cool. The like you just said, Cherry Tonkoko, I liked it. It didn't blow my mind like when I first had Imperial Tonkoko, but it was an iteration of it, and it brought people tried it they've never tried it before. This is it's taken that beer and it's probably made it better than Imperial Tonkoko in terms of what we've got now.
But it's probably worth saying at this time, what can you expect out of a beer that's going into wood? So what's going to happen is, first of all, the beer is going to start to take up some of the flavour of the previous occupant of the barrel, whether that be wine, bourbon, whiskey. You're going to get some of that flavour coming through, because some of that's still sat in the wood. You're going to get an interaction with the wood that's going to make it a little bit woody. You're going to get an interaction with the wood that's going to generate something called vanillin. Vanillin, unsurprisingly, gives a vanilla-like character, so it makes it a little bit creamier. And just the mere amount of time that you're going to age a beer like this in a barrel is going to see some of the bigger flavour compounds break down into smaller flavour compounds, and we generally see a softening of the flavours over time, and it becomes more refined, more balanced. And I think in drinking that, you'd have to say that is smooth, and that is like seriously balanced. And that is because of the should have been 12 months, but was actually 14 months in barrels.
It's 9.5%. It's maybe a little bit stronger than that, but 9.5%. It doesn't taste anywhere near the strength. You can properly enjoy that and have a nice night.
I wonder if I had because I, like you, had an underfill, and I wonder if I drank it too cold. Because I just stated at the start that the Tonka wasn't all that evident anymore. Wherever I'm drinking this now, there's plenty of it in there. Yeah. Well, but the thing that doesn't seem to be so evident anymore is the coconut.
Yeah, when we first did a barrel-aged Tonkoko, we realised straight away that the coconut flavour we put into that beer dies down after 12 months, 100%. It's super subtle. One of the things that actually happens with barrels is that the previous occupant, as you said, like if it's a spirit, it'll take on some of that. So you will accidentally increase the strength of the liquid in there. So you can't legally sell it at that strength, so you need to dial it back. So first time we did Imperial Empress Tonkoko, we dialed it back with a batch of Imperial or Empress, I can't remember.
It would have been Imperial because we needed to bring the stuff down.
And balance it back that way. And in doing so, you've got the fresh coconut, which is a really nice feature. But sometimes you don't necessarily want that fresh flavour. So this beer in particular, for me, suits the fact that I thought we'd be sharing half a can each from this, but there's no chance I'm giving away half of this can.
So I love that we have that flexibility that we can just go with what comes back out of the barrel, or we can do what we did with the Empress. And I think we'll more likely in the future lean towards what we did with the Empress. That's what our American cousins tend to do. If it's something flavoured, they will age the base beer, the kind of unflavoured beer, in whatever wood, and then they would flavour it afterwards. But not to say you can't do both. It's also very interesting if you put fruit into a barrel with a beer like this, and you age it on the fruit, and then see what happens.
See how funky it becomes. So we've had a question from Derek Reefens. What's the best temperature to drink this beer at? Good show.
Room temperature, I would think you want to be maybe 16 degrees to 20 degrees, I would think, on this.
So typically, when as bar owners as well as brewery owners, cask beer 12 to 14 degrees, keg beer 6 to 8 degrees. But in reality, by the time it gets to your glass and you sat at your table for a while, it warms up a bit. This beer in particular, leave it out, let it warm up. If it goes to room temperature, that's perfect. You're going to get so much more flavour coming through. It's not going to last very long, so drink it within a couple of hours. Don't leave it overnight at room temperature, but yeah, that's awesome.
So if we were going to get sciencey on this, and I've done this a few times before, perception of flavour is very, very temperature dependent. So as we said earlier, your perception of flavour is massively down to aromatics. And cold temperature suppresses aromatics. So the colder something is, the less you are going to perceive the aroma, therefore the less you perceive the flavour. This is why things like extra cold versions of certain lagers exist, because they're trying to make it as mundane as they possibly can, so you can't taste it, and therefore you think it's amazing. But really, if you want to get maximum flavour out of something, and that's really important with something like this, which is massively complex, has all these different dimensions going on, you need to be drinking it a lot warmer. So, like Wayne said, right at the start, it needs to be out of the fridge early, needs to be warming up, coming to room temperature by the time we get to the end of a session like this, and then you can truly appreciate it at the right temperature.
So if you're still watching at home, Sal, can you get me a can of Hey You Gals out? Sorry, HYG out, and put it on the side, because I'll be drinking that when I get home.
Nice. So we have some more questions coming in. So John Sandals this time. The artwork on this beer is a bit of a departure from your usual can artwork. Can you tell us the story behind this?
So it's obviously very intentional. So we aren't going to be bringing out that many of these beers, and when we do, they're going to be pretty rare. You guys, if you've joined us and you've actually a beer box subscriber, then you're pretty lucky, because we only got a couple. Well, I can't remember the exact number, but when this beer launches next week, we've got a few hundred cans for our web shop. That's how rare it is. We fill these barrels, and we only fill a few of them at a time. So we want to make sure that when we do get a chance to launch them, that then it becomes part of something that's impressive, something we feel proud of, and you guys want to try and get hold of it. So you can see it on the shelf, and you know that it's different to our standard range. And yeah, the State of Mind is a series we've launched with, and it's going to be super decadent, super luxurious. It's going to be the best of what we do. So,
and it's different. We've tried to create that luxury beer you want to lay down, beer you want to invest in, feel in a can. So hence it's got the little seal thing that looks a little bit reminiscent of a wax seal that you might get on a bottle. But we only have the means to can, so we wanted to make a can look the best that a can look.
Best it can.
Hey. And in complete transparency, this was our first attempt, and we think we've done all right. But we have highlighted a few ways in which we think we can make this better. And we are working on that now, and we hope by the time we release the next one in this series, we will have it looking even sleeker.
Yeah, definitely.
So, next one for you?
Belinda Morley. Were the cherries added to the base beer in the form of raw fruit? My son and husband used raw cherries in a homebrew stout. It worked really well. I did a homebrew with raw cherries once, and it got infected.
Well,
that didn't get infected. I'll leave Lee to answer the next bit because I've got to speak to somebody.
He's definitely not going to the toilet. Absolutely not. So, yeah. Before we get into that, the reason that you're going to get infection with raw fruit is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sources of wild yeast is skins of fruit. So you do need to boil up any fruit that you tend to put in beer. What we tend to do to avoid those kind of issues is we buy in an aseptically, so no bacteria present, aseptically prepared puree or concentrate of a fruit. So for this one, we acquired two different types. We got some sour cherry concentrate, and we got some sweet cherry concentrate. And I do remember a time about 18 months ago where we were sampling all of these different concentrates that we could have used. Did we go sour? Did we go sweet? Did we go 50-50? Did we go all these different percentages? And this was the result of that. We decided it was going to be these particular ones in this particular concentration, and this is how we did it. So, cherries are fucking awesome in beer, quite frankly. I may have mentioned before, I'm hugely into Belgian beer. One of the things I really, really like is what they call their creeks, which is lambic beer, so spontaneously fermented beer that is then matured on cherries. So they would create this sour beer. They would then take barrels or foeders, which are massive versions of these, and they would load them full of cherries. And then they would put the sour beer in on top of the cherries, and then somewhere between 1 and 3 years later, they would bottle that beer, and then we would be able to consume it. So I've gone into boredom land on Belgian beers again. So you need to bring us back on.
So we've got one. What's this? Will all the State of Mind? Interesting. Will all the State of Mind releases be included in the subscription boxes?
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So if we take the next one, for example, Mockerman, we only made 2 barrels of it.
So two of these.
Yeah, so with that, there wouldn't even be enough for the subscribers right now. So we are now expanding our barrel program. So some of that will make it into the subscription program down the line. But as it stands, we did not fill enough of these things to be able to do that every time, so because we didn't know your guys' appeal for this, which is super flattering. Thank you, guys.
I'd estimate in the next 2 to 3 months, the State of Mind beers we launch probably won't make their way into the box. It depends how many we get from them. But after that, when we're on the new site and we're doing bigger batches, then we wouldn't rule it out. It's one of the things we want. We want you guys to get the best beer that we produce. We want you to get it first and exclusive. This is super exclusive for us, and we want you guys to be able to taste it early, to be able to talk about it, to be able to tell your friends about it, and to make the launch of it. It doesn't actually launch till next week, so when it does launch, we want people to be aware of it. We want people to enjoy it as much as we're going to. So it was a bit of a sneak preview, to be honest with you. I can't remember off the top of my head what an individual can of this costs, but it's 9.5%. It's not a cheap beer.
Well, it's best part of 10 quid, I think. So you're not going to get every single one, but you are going to get exclusives. So by virtue of the fact that we are going to move the bulk of the production up to the new site, that means we've got a facility here that we can do something slightly more exclusive with. And every once in a while, you are going to get some of that stuff. So yeah, as a subscriber, you won't get all the super funky, interesting ballet stuff, but you will be getting stuff that other people are not getting. So at this point, I think what we want to do now is we're going to tell you about the beers that we're going to have coming up. So Wayne's going to tell you all the new stuff that's coming, and then I'm going to tell you about the exciting stuff that's coming back.
So we're pretty much obviously all in lockdown at the moment, so we're trying to keep things interesting. We're trying to brew new beers in can that you guys can all try. So we've got a 9.5% beer. What's it called, Lee?
Biotransformation. Is that because you didn't think you could pronounce it?
No, I just figured you came up with a name so you can tell people about it.
I didn't give it a name. We are brewing that beer with Beer Hawks Bar in Leeds. That opened about a year ago. It's their first birthday beer, which is for their anniversary, which cannot take place because we're all in lockdown.
So it's an Aclava flavoured, inspired beer. So then we've got the Mick Hucknall, the Simply Red inspired Holding Back the Tears. So 5.2% pale ale. We've then got a pretty cool one, the return leg of the Sonic S43 beer, we brewed earlier. That's called Philly Harmonic Orchestra, 7.1%. So it's a Philly sour. So
that one we've produced with a really interesting yeast. It's called Philly sour yeast. It kind of does the souring thing. So it produces the lactic acid to create the acidity, sharpness, pH drop. But then once it's done that, it then switches into the normal mode of creating alcohol. So it's our first time using this. S43's first time also. Going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
And then we've got our brewers. We've asked them to do some interesting suggestions. And the first one that came up, Jack came up with, is called Grainsley Harriet. So Grainsley Harriet's going to be 11.6% rye.
Is it okay if we laugh at our own names? Because I can't help myself sometimes.
I'll go on then. Next one, 8.1% dipper, which happens to have a hop in it called Rakow.
And that's going to be called Rakow Welsh.
Yeah, there we go.
So, if you're massively into your craft beer and you are aware of a hop called Galaxy, our very, very first time of using that hop in the almost 5 years of our existence will be inside that beer alongside the Rakow and some Nelson.
It's going to be awesome, that beer. And then it's going to be super limited because State of Mind is that way, but yeah, barrel aged Mockerman, 12% coffee, imperial stout, breakfast stout. Obviously, you have it for breakfast. Is coming soon. So
it still makes me laugh that we can call something that's 12% a breakfast stout. Because your day is going to be super interesting if you have that for breakfast.
Exactly.
And then what we also have returning soon is one of the things you guys love the most is rhubarb Streisand. We're bringing back the sour version. So Babs, as we call her, the sour edition will be back soon. We let this one out of the bag earlier. We're also bringing back extra brownie pints, which I think is one of our most highly rated beers. In fact, if you look on Untappd right now, you will see it is in the top 50 in the UK. We're also bringing back Matthew McConaughey's, which is a DDH Pale.
Hoping some Graham Norton soon.
Would be nice. We're bringing back Empress Tonkoko.
So the big Empress is coming back earlier than normal. So we're going to make sure we get that back out for you guys in time for Christmas. We're in lockdown. You've got to have a can of Empress at home.
Yeah, we ordinarily only brew that in January, so we are pulling out all the stops to get that out a little bit earlier. And then this one's a little bit selfish on my part. One of the favourite sours we've done the last few years is the one we did with Brew by Numbers, which is called Sour Grapes and Silly Japes. Wayne and I particularly enjoyed pouring that across in Copenhagen a while back. People absolutely loved it over there. We are aiming to package that probably almost Christmas week.
Yeah.
It's mainly so I can drink that on Christmas. Absolutely love that beer. So Silly Grapes and Silly Japes coming back.
Silly Grapes and Silly Japes.
In all of that, there is one beer that we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, I think someone's going to bring something across for us now. So one of the things we alluded to at the start of all this was the fact that we're opening a new bar. Obviously, still in full lockdown, and we're not going to. Well, we are going to eat all this, but
Not on camera, but
we've actually got a new beer coming out, and it's called The Things Yuzu to Me. So Yuzu are the street food vendor who do all our food in the markets up in Pocklington, and we've decided our new bar in the new city we're going into that Yuzu are also going to do the food there.
well, before we go further with that, what suggestions did we get? Where do people think it's going to be?
Newcastle,
Newcastle,
Wakefield,
Belfast,
Wakefield,
Cardiff,
Belfast. Right, okay.
London, Manchester.
Right, well, it was one of them.
Newcastle.
No, it wasn't Newcastle. Where was it? Where?
Barbados. I'm eating some gyoza.
I guess I best reveal them. Our new bar is going to be in Leeds. It's going to be on New Briggate Street. It's going to be opposite Belgrave Music Hall, not too far from Brewdog North Street, just up the road from North Bar, directly below one of the best restaurants in Leeds, which is called Vice and Virtue. Vice being the cocktail bar, Virtue being the very, very highly rated. Is it Michelin starred? If it's not, it should be.
Not quite.
The
chef is on. Their chef is on MasterChef next week as one of the MasterChef professional chefs. So yeah, it's we saw it and we wanted it. Unfortunately, obviously we're in full lockdown. We hope to get it open in time for December. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be our first venture, obviously outside of York and York. Well, it is Yorkshire. It's West Yorkshire. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. And we've got some really good beers. We're going to put a lot of different beer choice on in there. We're going to have great food, and it's going to be a nice addition to our portfolio. And hopefully, you guys will get to come
and we're hoping to make the hoptails more of a regular thing over there. So the hoptails, if you're not aware, are cocktails that our mixologists John and Liam have created here based on our beers. So kind of like cocktails, but based on beers. And we want to make more of a thing of that across in Leeds. Because of the beautiful fine dining restaurant we're going to have above us with Vice and Virtue. So if you want to try more of that stuff, you know where to go and get it. So that's almost all I think we have for you this time, unless we have any more questions coming in.
not quite all. Where did you say the ideas? Where do people want bars? Cardiff.
Newcastle, Wakefield, Manchester, Hull, London, Belfast.
Well, in that list, there is something we're working on. We can't tell you too much because we've got a lot to get. We've got the legals to get through. But there's another venue, another city in that list, and hopefully, but by the time we get to the next tasting live YouTube event, we'll be able to confirm we're going to have a bar in that place as well.
If you haven't heard about it by the time we do this again next, the legals have gone badly wrong. So yeah, we are very advanced in discussions about another place somewhere else in the UK, which the only clue we're going to give you is it is not in Yorkshire this time. That's the only clue you're getting. Right, so we do have another question coming in from my good mate Richard Brew. I have a question about the new bar in Leeds. Can I have a permanent seat? Of course you can, mate. Yeah, it goes without saying. I'll have it engraved.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. I know it's a first weekend. Well, it's not the first weekend of lockdown. It's the first weekend we've done lockdown. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We've got some awesome beers for next month, and hopefully you guys can join us again. So
yeah,
cheers.
thanks again. So as always, let us know what you thought about the session. What would you do different? What would you change? Sorry, I'm getting distracted by what's going on behind the camera. But thank you guys. Really appreciate it being with us. Cheers.
Bow bun.